Hello and welcome to Money Matters TV and our segment called Growth Stories, where we hear from entrepreneurs and advisors who share secrets and advice on what business owners need to know to grow. I'm your host, Mike Verrill, Managing Director with Sharp Capital Advisors, a member of the Sharp Financial family. The problem for business owners is fractured business and personal financial advice. The solution is our unique integrated financial management approach, where we've combined business advisory, accounting and tax, investment banking, wealth management, and family office services to help create maximum value and help business owners and their families achieve extraordinary things. From time to time, issues involving life sciences, healthcare, technology companies may be discussed on the show. Those discussions are not and should not be viewed as financial advice. Moreover, since the show is pre-recorded and played at a later date, some of those discussions may no longer be relevant. Please seek advice from your financial advisor before entering into any financial transaction. I'm joined by my co-host, Katie Wenger. Katie is a transaction and advisory associate with CBRE. CBRE is a global real estate consulting firm, and Katie specializes in working with high-growth companies in the Philadelphia region to develop real estate strategies to support their business objectives. Katie is also an active advising member of Philadelphia Alliance of Capital and Technology and is an active committee member with the Philadelphia Network of Women. And Katie, it's great to see you as always. Thanks for joining me and co-hosting Growth Stories. Just curious, since the last time we met, maybe share a good client success story and maybe one of the challenges that you dealt with in dealing with this current market that we're in.
Sure. Yeah. Great to be back, Mike. It's good to see you as always. And I think what's really fascinating about this current time in our market is we're continuing to see some markets do really well in the office world and some markets kind of start to struggle. And it's almost this over commoditized office space that's starting to become obsolete. So we're seeing markets that are really well amenitized. So they have great restaurants and bars and easy access from the highways and the train rails, really fare well. And then when you look at those that maybe don't have those access to amenities, they're starting to struggle quite a bit, even more so than maybe early stages of COVID. So a lot of what we're seeing are, these big tenants that maybe had 100,000 square feet, 50,000 square feet in a market that was a little bit further away from these amenity hubs. They're moving closer to, the amenities and downsizing quite a bit with this hybrid kind of work environment. So while the headlines might read one way, there's a lot of nuances to the office market we're seeing today.
Are you still seeing some bit of a depression in the central business districts, or are some of those companies coming back to take advantage of the city amenities?
Yeah, we are. I think, it's continuing to be dependent on the entities that are, we've seen Comcast in Philadelphia go back to work 4 days a week. That's definitely brought a lot of vibrancy back to the center city of Philadelphia. However, there's not a ton of companies that have come back in a really strong, meaningful way. They're all still kind of dipping their toe in the water. So I think throughout 2024, we'll start to see some companies really take a hard stance as to where they are in the hybrid return to work policy. And, hopefully that continues to bring a lot of vibrancy back to those city centers.
Great. Well, I'm looking forward to the story from our guests today. We've got two brothers struck by the entrepreneurial spirit, so that should be fun. But before we introduce them, we do have a question from one of our viewers. Marie Hampton from Philadelphia would like to know, what is the commercial real estate outlook for the year? I've already touched a little bit on some of the dynamics, but maybe you could give us, your insight based on what you're seeing and maybe CBRE is projecting for the year.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Marie. This is well timed. We actually just had our national outlook call for 2024, and a lot of the language that was used, despite the different asset classes, was kind of seeing some stability in interest rates throughout the year. And potentially what that might mean is just, a little bit more certainty in decision making. So it really depends on the asset, where you're looking and the geography. However, I think as interest rates continue to stay high, if they stay stable, that might help the industry kind of just make more decisions. We've been in really a kick the can down the road type of mentality in most asset classes. And I think with a little more stability, a little more certainty as to what that will look like, it should help some transactions transpire in the next year.
Great. Thank you, Katie. Marie, hopefully you found that helpful. It's always great to hear from our viewers. To submit questions for a future show, here's how to send your questions to Money Matters TV.
You can have your questions answered on Money Matters. Please go to our website, money-matterstv.com. On our homepage, click on the banner on the right that says, Send us your questions. While you're on our website, you can find information about our host and guests, as well as show notes and links about this show and past shows. Money Matters is also available as a podcast on iTunes and Stitcher, so you can listen to Money Matters while you're on the go. That website address, again, is money, MONEY, -matters, MATTERS, TV.com.
As commercial real estate brokers, our guests today met many interesting entrepreneurs and successful companies along the way. Trading their current jobs for that life seemed like the smart move to make. Katie and I are pleased to welcome Grow to Grow Stories, Kyle and Keith O'Brien, brothers and co-owners of New Wave Art. Kyle and Keith, thanks for joining us today.
Hey guys, thanks for having us.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. So I know you have that entrepreneurial bug, being that you started everything out in the brokerage world in commercial real estate. But I really would love to hear a little bit more about when you really felt like you were an entrepreneur and really kind of caught that energy. Was it at a young age, or, did you kind of enter the business world and really drive towards that entrepreneurial path?
Yeah, I'll start it off. It's first off, if I go blank or have an out of body experience, I'm just gonna get up and walk away. So, but I'm joking. Yeah. So Keith and I were both in real estate, commercial real estate, 12 years ago. And I was a salesperson for about 6 years, and Keith was doing it longer than me. And we were always surrounded. All of our clients were entrepreneurs, the majority of them. And you just found that everybody had their own unique story. And when the economy really tanked in 2007, 2008, he and I were looking for an excuse to kind of tap into that entrepreneurial bug that we always had. And I think it's important to say that commercial real estate, it fit us just because we felt as though we had our own business, even though we were working under an umbrella, a brokerage firm. He and I were partners in our own little business within that umbrella. But yeah, after brokerage, or way before that, I had a little landscaping business with one of my buddies from the age of 10 to 15. So if I wanted the cool shoes or the nice shirt, I had to go out and buy it myself. So 10 to 15 had a little landscaping business that bought me some cool shoes. That's about it. And then after that, when I was 15, I started working in restaurants. And how about yourself?
I'll jump in. Yeah. So I guess just jumping off what Kyle was just saying, I don't know. Our dad always pushed sales and said sales was the route you should take. And if you can learn how to deal with people, you'll figure anything out, really. So I remember he had me selling Christmas cards when I was 6 in the summertime. But then I guess just going down the path, my whole goal was to, become an art teacher and do real estate investing in the summertime. And I went to Penn State and did student teaching and realized it was not for me one bit. So ended up trickling my way into real estate and did that for about 10 years, 10 years, about 6 years with Kyle. And we just met a lot of cool people, had a lot of great mentors in commercial real estate. And the big thing that we recognized while we had our own business within that umbrella, if Kyle or Keith weren't picking up the phones and cold calling or knocking on doors, the business stopped. And what we recognized about consumer products was you could build a brand. And if you could build a brand that eventually ran without you, you would have something much bigger than Keith or much bigger than Kyle. And that was really the draw that we recognized. And that we learned a lot from commercial real estate, but that was kind of once we realized the limitations, at least for us, we recognized that we wanted to start our own business and roll the dice and see what would happen.
And that's fantastic. I spent some time in commercial real estate, so you definitely feel the risk of every day, every month, right? Whether you're going to be successful or not. And I know Katie lives that as well.
You have to keep that pipeline full.
Yeah, exactly. So you certainly have your battle scars there. And then it sounds like your dad really had, an entrepreneurial mindset too. I mean, selling is, many entrepreneurs we work with, like selling is at the core of what's made them successful. So your ability to go out and connect with customers for your product or service, that's huge. Your dad obviously, early on was an inspiration, but he was somewhat of an inspiration for you too in coming up with the idea for New Wave Art. Can you talk a little bit about that and how he helped kind of give you guidance and maybe some inspiration in going in this direction for your business?
Just want to take turns.
Yeah. Well, and then I'll kick it back to you.
That's fine.
So yeah, it was. I guess it was back in 2000. It was probably 2008, 2009. Went over to their house, our parents' house, for dinner, and my dad was in his studio, which was in his basement at the time, and walked down to the studio, and he had all these cardboard cutouts. And I looked at him and said, what are you doing? He looked like a mad scientist with just everything around him, all these cutouts. And he goes, oh, yeah, you remember that artist palette I was telling you about that had the 3-point design? He said a couple of people in my classes want me to make a palette for them. And this was a design that he had been using for the past 20 years. He was always a big advocate of holding a handheld palette. But the issue was there wasn't an ergonomic palette out there. So he created his own palette, which distributed the weight of the palette among his hand, arm, and torso. So it was a comfortable palette to hold. And an artist palette hasn't changed. The shape of it hasn't changed in centuries. Everybody's probably seen the traditional Bob Ross palette or a kidney shaped palette. This was a really new take on a design for an artist palette. So I sat down with them and I was like, oh, well, I started holding some of the cardboard cutouts and said, well, why don't we tweak this angle here, tweak that angle there? It was fun. It was almost like a bonding experience. And I had always built things when I was younger. So I really got into it with them. And so Keith, he came down, he started looking at it, and we're like, this is pretty cool. I wonder if people would actually buy this. And should I just go long story short? Because we can talk.
The short of it is if he keeps going, it'll be like 20 minutes long. So the cliff notes are basically, my dad didn't really know what to do with the idea. He said, you guys want to run with it? We actually thought he was insane because it's an artist palette and it's such a niche business. But based upon our backgrounds, I had a background in the arts and we were both kind of looking around for other ideas. We said, let's run with it. So we started putting it together. We quit our jobs way too soon and basically spent the next 4 years trying to figure it out. And started off with these handheld wooden pallets and then began listening to customers in the market and building relationships. And slowly but surely, we began adding more and more products. And that's really the short story. Yeah. But it's like 4 years of pain, 4 to 5 years of just crying every day. And it was a mess.
Arguing nonstop.
Yeah.
I was going to say that that's incredible and quite a leap, right? You're completely changing industries, completely building a consumer-based business when you had been in the service industry your whole career. So
Everyone thought we were insane.
I mean, but hey, it worked. And I think that's
Yeah.
a special trait of an entrepreneur. And I think I'd love to hear a little bit more about, obviously taking that leap, what about it? Of course it was scary, but something about that made you want to do it. And I think sounds like you just really believed in the product and the need out there. But I'd love to hear a little bit more, when you're sitting in your office at your brokerage and you're deciding what to do, what made you kind of go and take that leap?
I would say I can't really speak for Kyle, but for me, it was, it's a good question. It was, so when we began talking about the idea, building a company, and anyone that started a company knows exactly what I'm talking about. There's so many facets that you're involved with, from marketing to finance to accounting to everything in between. There's so many aspects of operations. And for us, it was manufacturing. We thought we were going to do all e-commerce. We initially outsourced everything to the Amish, and we quickly realized we could not do that. We had to bring the stuff in-house to make the numbers work for wholesale. So all of a sudden we were adding manufacturing to the mix, but there's just so many things that you have to become an expert in, or at least a semi-expert in, right off the bat. It was just really interesting, and we just found ourselves gravitating towards every little nook and cranny, and wanted to understand how things are put together and how things are made. And you start learning about different substrates and different types of manufacturing. It was just an incredibly interesting process.
And then realizing that a website has to be made, and figuring out how to make a website. So
all of a sudden tech was involved.
Realizing that, we have to market the products. One of us should learn Photoshop, because we couldn't afford a marketing firm to do it. So we had to do it ourselves.
Yeah.
For me, it was the excitement of just diving in to something that seemed kind of bizarre at the time. It was just at this, you're talking 2010, 2011 is when we launched New Wave Art. And at the time I was 27 years old, and I thought, you know what, now's the time to do it. I didn't have a wife. I didn't have any kids at the time. And I figured now's the time to take the risk and really just dive into it. And we dove into it and kind of hit our head in the shallow end.
Both feet with no life preserver, it sounds like.
Yeah. And it took us about 5 or 6 years to really figure everything out. To going from a bedroom to a basement, and then going to a garage and a basement, and then to a warehouse. It's been a gradual progression. Yeah. It's a cliche, but overnight success in 10 years. And overnight success takes 10 years. So
there's probably some math behind that, right? I mean, I think if you talk to entrepreneurs, depending on what kind of business they're in, especially consumer products, where you really have to, if you're introducing something new to the market, right, there's no feedback until it's out there, right? And then all of a sudden, customers are saying, oh, I wish it did that, or could it do this, or maybe you had to tweak things. But it sounds like you also, maybe, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but, this is something your dad developed. Maybe there was some a real desire to kind of bring what he created to life and, right, give it some legs. I mean, did that come into it at all to help fuel you and keep you focused?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, he's to this day, he's proud of the fact that he was basically that spark initially that helped this to come off the ground. So he's pretty amazed at what's transpired over the past 10 to 12 years. And he's proud. There's no question about it.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's probably a really cool father-son moment. You mentioned the overnight success in 10 years. and it sounds like you had a lot of, training wheels and maybe, fire by or lessons by fire. How did you manage all that? Did Keith, you take these things, figure them out. Kyle, you take these things and figure them out. Did you put your heads together? Did you seek outside advice? Like, how did you help yourselves continue to grow and learn, or was it just complete trial and error all the way?
So the important thing, and even to this day, is we try not to overlap too much. When he and I have overlap, that's when there's some issues. So from day one, he had his tasks, I had my tasks. Now, of course, we always met and talked about each one, but yeah, we tried to eliminate the overlap. And really, it's, I mean, he and I started with looking at different products, and he and I, and with the help of our dad with the initial product, basically just designed it, put it together, and said, you know what, I hope people are going to buy this. It was really like that for years. Where it may take a year and a half. Sometimes we have a couple products that took over 2 years to develop. And it's no, but as we continue to do this, we started to understand and know the market. And the most important thing is understanding and knowing the market that you're in. And it took us 5 or 6 years to really start getting our legs and get things moving. And it's in our market, arts and crafts, it's understanding what the artists want. It's talking with teachers. It's having a network of friends in that marketplace that can really help us out. I mean, we'd be nowhere without our customers and the feedback. So
that's great. Go ahead, Katie.
I was going to say that comment, ties back to kind of that initial sentiment you outlined of, people kind of deal with people, and people are central to really any business, and understanding that those people is what kind of unlocks your success. So, if you're selling to these groups and these users, really understanding them in order to find that success is essential. Everything else is important, but if you don't have that and you don't have that understanding, it sounds like it'd be really, really challenging.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
We spent years going to trade shows, and we've driven across country to go to every show you can think of, and just really grinding it out. So
I'm guessing too that the 6 years you spent working together helped you figure out how to work together, right? I mean, it could have been a little bit more challenging if you came into this and you were figuring out the dynamics of how each of you operate, while you have all this stress and risk of building a business. So that had to be helpful.
Partnerships are incredibly hard. We're a great organization that I would recommend any entrepreneur to join is EO, Entrepreneurs Organization. That's been an amazing resource for us. But the common thing you hear from any entrepreneur is how difficult partnerships are. And what we've found is communication is key. The nice thing, the worst thing about being brothers in a business is there's no filter. The best thing is there's no filter, because the second somebody is harboring, something they're angry about because someone said something or acted a certain way, that's when the wheels start to come off the car. And he and I, because there's no filter, if Kyle says something that drives me crazy, I'm going to tell him right away, and he's going to do the same with me. And even though we've had our, brotherly conflicts, because we have that open line of communication, we're able to get through pretty much all disagreements and understand each other's perspective. And it's partnerships are an interesting one for sure.
How do you, if the two of you disagree on something, but obviously a decision has to get made, and we have a number of clients, right, that they're not related. Sometimes we are. We do a lot of husband and wife teams, it seems, but 50-50 owners. At some point, a decision has to get made, and one of you is going to be, I won't say wrong, but compromising maybe more than the other. How do you get through those situations?
Well,
we fight it out until someone's
rock
not
paper,
standing.
scissors.
Yeah.
So having a partnership between the two of us, every decision that I want to make or Keith wants to make, he has to sell it to me, or I have to sell it to him. And
we disagree about everything.
Everything.
There's very few things we agree on, and pretty much every day is an argument back and forth on every decision. But we end up figuring out the best way because of that, and we respect each other's boundaries. But we do try to jab each other once in a while.
Right. Yeah. So if you went along agreeing and everything, and all of a sudden there was a disagreement, you wouldn't know how to handle it. But it's normal business operation, right? That's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It almost serves as like a development, right? Like a thought development of just, if you're both each other's devil's advocate, eventually you have to get to some solution to move it forward. So that ultimate solution typically probably is the most favorable because you've looked at every angle of it.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. Right.
So what's next for New Wave Art? Where do you go from here? Growth, expansion? Are you happy running the business at the level it is? What are your plans?
So, I mean, and we probably should have said this in the beginning. So we manufacture a majority of the products here. We do have a handful of ancillary products that we get from other sources. But about 95% of our products are manufactured in-house. We love that business model because we can control price, we can control quality. We do all the product design in-house. And for us, we have endless ideas for new products. And this is probably a cliche, but I'll say every 10 years, you kind of have changing of the guards, and you have some people that retire and you have new people coming in. It's just always that mix. And I remember when we first went to our trade shows, there was a lot of negativity around the fine arts because people were scared. They were scared of e-commerce. They were scared of technology, and they were scared. They continued to be scared of imports from overseas, and there was just a lot of negativity. And so that was the entree we had into the industry. And we looked at it and we said, "You guys are crazy. Eventually, there's so much technology. You can't be consumed by all this technology and not have a huge percentage of the population wanting to be involved in the arts or music or anything that deals with our senses, right?"
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people have been painting since the time of cavemen on caves. You're not going to get rid of that. It's not going anywhere. But so what was interesting as time evolved, that's exactly what we saw. The retailers, as well as the distributors, as well as the sales reps and the manufacturers that embraced technology and looked for ways to grow and evolve with the industry as everything around it was changing. You go to a trade show now. We went to one last year, and I remember saying to Kyle, this was the most positive trade show I've ever been to in this industry. And it's like people have begun to learn how to integrate technology like Instagram and even TikTok and things of that nature with the fine arts.
Right. Well, they probably need that outlet, like you said, to the senses, right? So
yeah.
Kyle and Keith, this has been awesome. I'm very excited to hear your story. Thanks so much for sharing. Katie, thanks for co-hosting. The next guest will be Ben Johnson, president of Johnston Business Advisors. And as a reminder, you can download the podcast from iTunes, Stitcher, as well as see programs on your YouTube channel, money-matterstv.com. Thank you for joining us for Growth Stories.
Thanks, guys.